Beloved, I came to tell somebody today, you are not fighting alone. The Lord, mighty in battle, strong and powerful, is stepping into your situation right now. You've cried long enough. You've worried long enough. You've been standing at the edge of that Red Sea, wondering if you're going to drown. But hear me, God never sends a battle he doesn't intend to win. You see, every storm has an expiration date. The devil might have started the fight, but God is going to finish it. That sickness, that heartbreak, that financial struggle, it didn't come to destroy you. It came to develop you. Because the truth is, God does his best work in the dark. He doesn't show up when everything's perfect. He shows up when everything's falling apart. When the fire is the hottest, when the pressure is the greatest, when you feel like you can't go another step, that's when God steps in. Nora invited me to STEP in Country CLUB chord. Raising hands when God steps in, the atmosphere shifts. When God steps in, walls fall down. When God steps in, chains break and enemies scatter. But hear this, God won't step in until you step out. He told Moses, stretch out your hand. He told Peter, step out on the water. He told Joshua, march around the walls, because faith is the invitation for heaven's intervention. And while you're standing there thinking nothing's happening, heaven is working behind the scenes. Angels are moving, doors are aligning, mountains are trembling. He's fighting battles you don't even know you're in. The Lord says, be still and know that I am God. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to fight it. You just have to stand still and let the Lord show himself mighty on your behalf. That test you're in right now, it's about to become your testimony. That breakdown is setting you up for a breakthrough. The same God who shut the lion's mouth for Daniel, the same God who walked in the fire with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that same God is stepping into your battle today. And when he brings you out, because he will bring you out, you're not coming out the same. You're coming out stronger. You're coming out wiser. You're coming out with a new anointing, a new power, and a new purpose. So don't give up now. Don't back down now, because the battle belongs to the Lord, and the victory is already yours. Your battle has an expiration date. You may be standing in the middle of something that looks impossible right now, pain pressing in on every side, questions echoing in your mind, and hope slipping through your fingers. But hear me when I tell you this will not last forever. Every trial has a timeline. Every storm that rises also runs out of rain. The enemy may have launched his attack, but he does not have the authority to decide how long it lasts. God does, and when God says enough, it's over. You see, we often think the presence of a battle means the absence of God. But that's a lie. The presence of the battle is proof that there is something valuable in you. The enemy does not attack empty places. He attacks areas of potential. He comes after purpose. He comes after destiny. The fact that you are in a fight is evidence that heaven has invested something powerful inside you. The greater the battle, the greater the breakthrough that's coming on the other side. But here's the tension. The expiration date is not printed on the package. God doesn't tell you when the storm will end. He just promises it will asterisk. You might not know the when, but you can be sure of the who. The one who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it. The clock is ticking even when you can't see it. What looks endless is actually counting down. Every tear, every prayer, every lonely night is pushing you closer to the end of that trial. You may not feel it, but your trouble has a schedule. Your suffering has an end date written in heaven's calendar. The enemy wants to convince you that you're stuck, that this is how it will always be. But the devil is a liar. You are not stuck. You are being set up asterisk. God is using the very thing the enemy designed to destroy you as the training ground to develop you. You're learning endurance in the waiting. You're learning faith in the silence. You're learning strength in the struggle. And when it's over, not if, but when you will look back and say, if it had not been for the Lord who was on my side, I would have been consumed. So hold your peace, because the Lord will fight for you. He didn't bring you this far to leave you halfway through. When the Israelites stood at the edge of the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army behind them, it looked like the end, but God said, "Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord." What they thought was their death scene became their deliverance scene. What was a sea of impossibility became a pathway to destiny. Because every battle that begins against you has to bow to the word that's spoken asterisk for asterisk you. Your battle has an expiration date. It might not be today, and it might not be tomorrow, but it's coming. The pain won't last. The pressure won't last. The loneliness, the confusion, the doubt, they're all temporary guests. God is about to turn the page. The sun is about to break through the storm clouds. The season of tears is about to give birth to a season of triumph. You will not die in this. You will not drown in this. You are coming out because the God who promised to be with you in the fire has already decreed your victory before the flames ever touched you. So lift your head, square your shoulders, and remind yourself, my battle has an expiration date, and my breakthrough is on schedule. God doesn't step in until you step out in faith. That's the divine pattern woven all throughout Scripture, not because he needs your strength, but because he moves through your trust. Faith is heaven's invitation. It's the language that opens the door for the supernatural to walk into the natural. So often we sit waiting for God to move when God is waiting for us to move. We're asking for the sea to part, but he's waiting for us to stretch out the rod. We're asking for the miracle to manifest, but he's waiting for us to take the first step. God doesn't need your ability. He's looking for your availability. When Moses stood before the Red Sea, the people panicked. Pharaoh's army was behind them, the water was before them, and fear was all around them. But God said, "Why are you crying to me? Tell the people to move forward." It didn't make sense. The water was still there. But the sea didn't part until Moses stretched out his hand in faith. The miracle wasn't waiting on God. It was waiting on a man who dared to believe. The moment Moses obeyed, heaven responded. That's how faith works. You step, and then God shows up. So many of us want the assurance before we act. We want to see the whole map before we take the first step. But faith doesn't work like that. Faith walks while it's still dark, trusting that light will come. Faith builds the ark before the rain starts falling. Faith steps out of the boat while the storm is still raging. Faith believes while the tomb is still sealed. You won't always see how it will happen, but you must believe that it will. God never asks you to figure it out. He asks you to trust him through it. Think about Peter standing in the boat, watching Jesus walk on the water. The storm is violent, the waves are high, and every natural instinct says, stay where it's safe. But something inside Peter says, if it's you, Lord, bid me come. And Jesus says one word, come. That's all. No guarantees, no explanation, no safety net, just come. Peter steps out, and the impossible becomes possible. As long as his eyes are on Jesus, what was unstable becomes solid. The water that could drown him becomes the platform that carries him. But it only happened when he stepped out. If Peter had stayed in the boat, he would have stayed in the storm. That's what faith does. It moves first. It obeys before it understands. It praises before it sees results. It gives thanks while the situation still looks hopeless. Faith doesn't wait for the miracle to move. It moves until the miracle manifests. And once you move, God moves. Once you trust, he transforms. Once you step, he steps in. Heaven responds to movement. Sometimes the reason the door hasn't opened yet is because you haven't reached for the handle. God is saying, if you'll go, I'll show. If you'll trust, I'll prove. If you'll move, I'll manifest. You're waiting for confirmation, but God is waiting for action. You don't need all the answers, you just need faith the size of a mustard seed. So don't let fear paralyze you. Don't let doubt silence you. The miracle is in your motion. The blessing is in your obedience. God didn't part the Jordan until the priest's feet touched the water. The power didn't fall on the upper room until the believers gathered in unity. Every act of faith is a signal to heaven that says, I'm ready. And when heaven hears that signal, God steps in with strength, with provision, with breakthrough, with victory. So take that step, make that move, speak that word, do what he told you to do. Because God doesn't step in until you step out. And when you do, he'll meet you in the middle of the impossible and make a way where there was no way. The battlefield is God's platform. What looks like chaos to you is a stage for God to show his glory. You might see confusion, fear, and opposition, but heaven sees opportunity. God never wastes a battle. Every struggle you face, every tear you cry, every sleepless night, it all becomes the backdrop for him to reveal who he truly is. You think you're standing in a war zone, but God sees a stage set for his power. He doesn't just deliver you from the battle. He displays himself through it. Sometimes God allows the battlefield because there are some things about him you can't discover in peace, only in pressure. You don't learn that he's a healer until you've been broken. You don't know he's a provider until you've been empty. You don't know he's a deliverer until you've been trapped. The battlefield becomes the classroom of faith. It's where you learn not just what God can do, but who God is. It's where you discover his strength in your weakness, his light in your darkness, his voice in your chaos. When David stood before Goliath, it wasn't just a boy facing a giant. It was God setting up a stage. Everyone around thought it was about weapons, but heaven knew it was about witness. David's sling was just the prop, God was the power. When that stone flew through the air, it carried more than force. It carried faith. And when the giant fell, every man, woman, and child watching that day knew that the battle wasn't David's. It belonged to the Lord. The battlefield became the platform for God's glory to be revealed to a nation. That's why you can't despise your battle. It's painful, yes. It's exhausting, yes. But it's also purposeful. God could have stopped it, but he didn't, not because he's absent, but because he's about to appear. The darker the night, the brighter his light will shine. The harder the fight, the greater the victory will be. You've been asking, why me, Lord? But maybe heaven is saying, because through you they will see me. Look at the story of the 3 Hebrew boys. Thrown into a furnace heated 7 times hotter than normal. It looked like the end. The fire was meant to consume them, but instead it became the very place where God made himself visible. The king looked in and said, "Didn't we throw 3 men bound into the fire? but I see 4 walking free, and the 4th looks like the Son of God. The battlefield became a platform. The furnace turned into a stage where God announced, I am with you in the fire. Sometimes your battle isn't even about you. It's about the people watching you. Somebody needs to see what it looks like when faith stands firm under fire. Somebody needs to witness peace in the middle of pain, joy in the middle of sorrow, strength in the middle of weakness. You are the living sermon God is preaching to the world. The victory won't just change your life, it will change theirs too. So don't run from the battlefield, don't curse it. Don't quit in the middle of it. Stand your ground and watch God turn it into his stage. You may be bleeding, but you're still breathing, and that means God isn't done yet. He's about to use your scars as evidence of his grace. He's about to turn your struggle into a story that gives him glory. The battlefield is where God proves himself faithful. It's where heaven kisses earth. It's where the impossible bows to the name above every name. So lift your head even in the fight, because this is not the end, this is the unveiling. This is the moment where God shows up and says, this battle belongs to me. He's fighting battles you can't even see. While you're pacing the floor at night, wondering how it's all going to work out, heaven is already in motion. While you're crying over what's in front of you, God is working behind the scenes on what's beyond you. You think nothing is happening, but the truth is, the unseen realm is alive with divine activity. Angels are moving, doors are shifting, enemies are being silenced, and paths are being prepared, all while you sleep, all while you wait, all while you wonder if God has forgotten you. He hasn't. He's just working in places your eyes can't reach. There's a reason we call him the God of mysteries. He doesn't always announce his moves. He doesn't always reveal his hand. Sometimes he hides his work to strengthen your trust. Because if you could see everything he was doing, you wouldn't need faith. Faith is believing that even when it looks like nothing is changing, everything is shifting. It's trusting that just because you can't trace him doesn't mean you can't trust him. He's fighting for you in ways you may never understand until long after the victory is won. Remember Daniel. He prayed for 21 days, fasting, crying out for an answer, feeling like heaven was silent. But when the angel finally appeared, he said, "From the first day you prayed, your words were heard. But I was delayed by the prince of Persia." In other words, the answer was sent the moment Daniel prayed. But there was a battle taking place in the unseen realm. Daniel didn't know it, but angels were fighting demons over his destiny. That's what's happening in your life right now, unseen warfare. You think you're just waiting, but heaven is warring. God is pushing back darkness to deliver light into your situation. And sometimes the delay is not denial, it's protection. God is rearranging the battlefield before he brings you into it. You're frustrated because you can't see progress, but maybe God is blocking something that would have broken you. Maybe the job that didn't call back, the relationship that ended, or the door that closed wasn't rejection, it was redirection. He saw something you didn't. He heard conversations you couldn't. He moved things out of the way before you even knew they were a threat. That's why you can't always measure God's movement by your feelings. Just because it feels still doesn't mean it's stagnant. God is strategic. There are moments when the silence of heaven is not the absence of God, but the sound of him working quietly. You don't hear the builder while the foundation is being poured, but when it's finished, you'll see the structure rise. You don't see roots growing underground, but they're anchoring the tree for the storm that's coming. In the same way, God is anchoring you for what's ahead. He's preparing blessings that need time to mature, aligning connections, softening hearts, and setting up divine appointments that will meet you at the exact moment you need them. If you could pull back the curtain of eternity for just 1 second, you'd see armies of angels standing guard over you. You'd see the hand of God diverting danger, intercepting attacks, and orchestrating details with precision. There are some accidents you never had, some illnesses that never reached you, some losses that never happened, not because you were lucky, but because heaven was intervening. So even when you feel surrounded, remember this, * you're surrounded by him. * the Lord of hosts, the commander of heaven's armies, is fighting on your behalf. He's never lost a battle, and he's not about to start with yours. You may not see it now, but one day you'll look back and realize that every closed door, every unanswered prayer, every quiet night was proof that God was fighting battles you didn't even know existed. So keep standing, keep believing, and keep trusting, because while you're fighting to hold on, heaven is fighting to bring you through. The Lord will turn your test into a testimony. What you're walking through right now, the pain, the pressure, the uncertainty, it's not pointless. It's preparation. Every tear you've cried, every door that slammed shut, every betrayal that cut deep, every night you couldn't sleep, it's all being woven into a story that will one day speak of God's faithfulness. You may not see it yet, but God is in the middle of the mess, turning what was meant to break you into the very thing that will bless you. There's a pattern in how God works. He never wastes a test. Before every elevation, there's always a challenge. Before every crown, there's always a cross. Before every victory, there's always a valley. God uses the tests of life not to expose your weakness, but to reveal his strength. He doesn't test you to fail you. He tests you to prepare you. And when the testing season ends, he doesn't leave you with shame. He leaves you with a story. The very thing that once hurt you will become the thing that heals others. The same mouth that once cried out in pain will one day declare, "Look what the Lord has done." Think about Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and forgotten in prison. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong, but through every setback, God was setting him up. The pit was necessary to push him toward purpose. The prison was necessary to prepare him for the palace. When Joseph finally stood before his brothers years later, he said, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." That's what divine transformation looks like. God taking the pieces of your pain and rearranging them into something powerful. You see, the test is temporary, but the testimony is eternal. Tests happen in private, but testimonies are shouted in public. You might feel hidden right now, buried under the weight of your circumstances, but seeds have to be buried before they grow. What feels like burial is actually planting. You're being planted, not forgotten. And when the time is right, God will raise you up and show everyone that his hand was on you the whole time. Sometimes we ask God to remove the test, but what he really wants is to refine us through it. The fire doesn't come to destroy gold, it comes to reveal it. You are being purified, not punished. God is using your pain to produce power, your struggle to strengthen your spirit, your tears to water the seeds of destiny. And when you come out of this, because you will come out. You'll come out shining brighter than before. Your story will change lives. Somebody else is waiting for your testimony to give them the courage to keep going. When they see that you survived, that you overcame, that you didn't lose your faith, it will ignite hope in their hearts. That's why the enemy is fighting you so hard, because he knows that if you ever come through this, your story will silence his lies. So don't despise the test, don't curse the process. Trust that the same God who allowed it will redeem it. He's the God who turns mourning into dancing, ashes into beauty, weakness into worship. One day, you'll look back and realize that what broke you actually built you. You'll stand in the place of victory and say, "If it hadn't been for the storm, I wouldn't have known his power." So hold on. Keep the faith. You are not just being tested, you are being transformed. And when it's all said and done, your scars will speak louder than your words. Your life will become living proof that the Lord truly can turn any test into a testimony. You're not just coming out, you're coming out changed. When God steps into your battle, he doesn't simply rescue you from the fire. He refines you through it. Deliverance is not just about escaping something, it's about emerging different. It's about walking out of the valley carrying wisdom, strength, and faith you didn't have before. Because when God brings you out, he makes sure you don't just survive, you evolve. You don't come out empty-handed, you come out empowered. Every struggle, every disappointment, every heartbreak, it all shapes you. You may not realize it while you're in it, but every battle you face is molding you into someone stronger, wiser, and more dangerous to the enemy than you've ever been. The pain that tried to destroy you is actually training you. The tears that fell in the dark are watering the seeds of new growth. When you finally step out of this season, you won't be the same person who went in. You'll walk differently, talk differently, think differently, because pain changes your posture and victory changes your vision. Look at Jacob. He wrestled all night with God, and when morning came, he walked out limping, but he also walked out blessed. His limp wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a reminder that he had encountered the living God. Sometimes God will leave a mark on you to remind you that you survived something that should have destroyed you. The struggle didn't steal his destiny, it shaped it. That limp became part of his legacy, and that's what happens when you truly encounter God in battle. You come out changed. The Israelites went through the Red Sea on dry ground, but when they looked back, the waters closed over their enemies. They didn't just escape Pharaoh, they were transformed into a people who had seen the hand of God. They walked into the sea as slaves and walked out as survivors. The sea didn't just free them, it forged them. Every step through that seabed was a step away from bondage and a step into identity. That's what God is doing in your life. He's not just bringing you out of something, he's bringing you into something greater. Too many people want the blessing without the breaking, the promise without the process. But God is more interested in your transformation than your comfort. He will let you walk through fire if it means you'll come out pure. He will let you fight battles if it means you'll discover your strength. He will let you lose people, places, and plans not to punish you, but to prepare you for what's next. Because when you come out of this, you're not going to think the same, settle the same, or believe the same. You'll have a deeper faith, a steadier heart, and a greater purpose. When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fiery furnace, the Bible says they didn't even smell like smoke. That's what God does. He brings you out without residue. People will look at you and never believe what you've been through because the grace on your life will outshine the pain of your past. You won't look like what you've been through because God's glory will rest on you. So don't just expect to come out. Expect to come out different asterisk. Expect to come out with new vision, with fresh fire, with unshakable faith. You may have gone in weak, but you're coming out strong. You may have gone in uncertain, but you're coming out confident. You may have gone in broken, but you're coming out whole. God is rewriting your story in the fire. He's transforming your scars into strength. And when this battle is over, you won't just thank Him for bringing you out. You'll thank Him for who you became in the process.